at a time when we can least afford it.
No, that's a great point. And I think, mayors obviously handle the day-to-day, whether it's picking up trash, enforcing the laws, keeping the streets clean, all of the small things that city government does, mayor sits on top of that. And to have him this distracted with federal charges, I think it's going to be very difficult for him to continue to run the city effectively.
May I just go back to the Trump fraud case and the skepticism by the appeals court justices? They're really passing judgment on New York's judicial system, aren't they? And it's a bad judgment at that.
Yeah, so remember at the time this case was going on, it looked like a real specious claim to come in after the fact and to say that somehow fraud had occurred when nobody was complaining of, losing money or being defrauded. And I think all along there was this skepticism that the trial judge, Engoron, and Letitia James, as the Attorney General, had kind of railroaded Donald Trump to try to score cheap political points and to do this before the election. This panel, which was sort of asking very basic questions about the fundamental basis for these charges and for these claims, I think dismantled the case pretty effectively. I think it's going to have a hard time surviving, especially at the almost $500 million penalty level that it currently stands.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Matthew Whitaker, thanks very much for being with us this morning, Matt. We appreciate it. And we'll see you again soon.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
First up, joining me now, great pleasure, dear friend Kellyanne Conway, former counselor to President Trump, host of Here's the Deal with Kellyanne on Fox Nation. And you just interviewed President Trump.
I did. We sat together for almost an hour today, Larry. The very first question I asked President Trump in our face-to-face interview was about Israel, Hamas, and Iran. And we went through, as you just did, very quickly, the two administrations and their policies towards Iran. And I think there's a certain melancholy and resolve with President Trump that he does think October 7th wouldn't have happened if he were still president. He does think Ukraine would not have been invaded. And he feels that, my words now, war through weakness versus his peace through strength. But what you say about the energy policy is important, too, that Iran was starving to do deals. The Biden administration has looked the other way. Trump, of course, imposed and enforced those sanctions right away, took us out of that crazy nuclear deal, and now Iran's on the march. He also made a good point in our interview today. President Trump said that the U.S. got in Israel's way, and they need to finish what they've started here. We also talked about the economy. We talked about school choice. We had a very lengthy conversation about the border, in fact, a couple times. And he said a couple things I thought were new. One is he keeps saying the damage has been done. He's making Kamala Harris eat and own this incumbency. So you see the disapproval ratings on the economy, on the direction of the nation, on the Israel-Hamas war, of course, on border security and migration. And he is putting that at her feet and basically saying the damage is done now. He wants to undo that damage, but he's the change maker. She's the incumbent, regardless of what she says. I also like the way he approached her as his political opponent. He was talking about where he sees her incompetence, her failure to do the job. Rather than these personal attacks, the failure, really an attack on her incompetence and her inability to actually have produced as vice president.
Failure to do the job. He's down south looking after Hurricane Helene, right? He's trying to bring in private volunteers and all kinds of people. He's also getting briefed by FEMA. Where's Harris? Where's Biden? Why aren't they on site? I mean, they say they're getting briefed. Harris went 20 minutes from the border in Arizona to a Hollywood fundraiser. Why hasn't she gone straight to, let's say, Georgia or North Carolina or some darn thing? I mean, Trump is acting like the president.
Trump is acting like the president. I watched him do this with the Baton Rouge flooding in 2016, right after he became campaign manager. I told him Governor Pence is going to the floods and Hillary Clinton was at some fundraiser in the swing state Hamptons or Nantucket or Aspen. And I remember candidate Trump said, well, I want to go too. And they went together. And he has done that so many times. You saw this in the White House. Look at what he did at East Palestine, Ohio. He was the first one on the ground in East Palestine long before anybody from this administration, including Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg, whose job it was to be there. He shows compassion. He shows that people want to be heard. They want to be seen. They want to get immediate relief. And for President Trump to show up there in Georgia today was incredibly important. I was with him right before he flew to Georgia. Also, he said something else today. He said after the folks get what they need in this moment. The food, the water, the shelter, the help. They've lost their memories, they've lost their property. And he wants to make sure that they have access to voting. He wants to make sure so close to Election Day that the people of North Carolina, Georgia, Kentucky, Tennessee, Florida, everybody who's been affected by this.
He also asked everybody to join him in prayer.
That's
and
right.
I love that.
And he had
All right,
Billy
I'm a
Graham there.
softie
Yep.
for that. I am.
Absolutely.
Franklin Graham and so forth.
Franklin.
America needs more of that, not less, okay? A certain vice presidential person running for president won't show up
No,
here
she
in
sends
New
her
York.
thoughts, never her prayers at this point.
I mean, she won't show up here for the Al Smith dinner, which raises money for Catholic charities. Again, a lot of people think, myself included, that she has an incredibly anti-Catholic, anti-Christian, one might say anti-religious, anti-God-bearing. And if she doesn't, okay, if she doesn't, then the left wing of her party does, and that left wing is the tail that wags the whole dog.
I think it's part of why they're losing Hispanics. It's obviously economic and opportunity and prosperity. It's obviously the border. It's obviously all that lost learning and what these parents, you know, Hispanics are the youngest of the 4 major races in this country, and they have the youngest children, school-age children. So they heard firsthand what was being taught in these schools during the pandemic. But I think the untold story about Hispanics is obviously the positions on life and the position on religion. You have a lot of people out there in the Democratic Party now don't want God mentioned, don't want us to start with a prayer. They're always setting their thoughts, never their prayers. So if a lot of church-going populations in this country feel that you are either hostile to their religious expression, you're going to pay for it. It's Donald Trump, 5 years ago during UNGA, United Nations General Assembly, who led the first of its kind religious freedom, religious liberty special session. And it was amazing. It was all religions across the country represented there.
So I got numbers. Let's see. Hillary won the Hispanic vote by 39 points. Joe Biden won it by 31 points in 2020. Right now, Kamala is winning by only 12.
Yep, according to
huge.
NBC poll.
Okay,
And in some polls.
One more.
Yep.
I want to go to
Please.
unions, organized labor. Bill Clinton won organized labor by 30 points. Joe Biden by 19 points. Kamala only 9. Okay, the leadership of some of these unions may say they're for Kamala, but the rank and file is going for Trump.
And that's why the Teamsters could not endorse her. First non-endorsement of a Democrat in decades, in part because when you looked at the polling, they favored Trump. The rank and file favored Trump. He hears this from the auto workers. He hears this from many of them. He says that. I'm going to give you 4 groups, Larry, very quickly. And I said this to President Trump in our hour-long interview today. Hispanic Americans, Black Americans, union rank and file households, young people. Donald Trump does not need to get 50% of any of those groups, let alone all those groups, to be the next president. He just needs to do better than your typical Republican and better than he's done before. And right now, Kamala Harris is underperforming Joe Biden, of all people, among young people. She's underperforming among Hispanics, African Americans, particularly males, and she's underperforming among union households. This is the key, and I think it's a big key to Pennsylvania. He was known as Scranton Joe. He'd been around a long time. He's Catholic, big Catholic population there. She is vehemently against fracking, vehemently against energy production, doesn't spend a lot of time there talking to the labor unions the way he did. And for President Trump to go to Erie County, Pennsylvania yesterday, which went Obama, Obama, Trump, Biden, it's very smart. I think his campaign is incredibly smart and strategic, where they send him and when. He's working his heart out, and he's doing what he did in 2016, which is go where the people are. Sure, it's a national audience, but you're doing that local TV, local print, and local radio interview before, after, and people see that there in that county for the entire week.
Last one, 30 seconds. Just got 30 seconds. J.D. Vance versus Tim Walz.
Can't wait.
What do you think?
Oh, I think Walz
Give us one pearl.
Walz will wipe the floor clean. Vance will wipe the floor clean with Walz. Yale Law School educated attorney versus, honestly, a coach and sometimes a clown. He thinks he's funny by being off the cuff, but all these stories that we're reading that must be coming from the Walz people trying to lower expectations by saying he's really nervous, he doesn't want to disappoint Kamala, he doesn't want her to think that she made the wrong choice in VP. We know she made the wrong choice. It should have been Josh Shapiro. But I think both of them are going to have to defend their principles, P-A-L-S, and principles, L-E-S. There's a huge contrast between the two parties now on taxes, on education, on foreign policy, on the border, on local crime. Walz has been a left-of-center governor. He was the 7th most bipartisan member in the House of Representatives when he represented a rural Minnesotan district. He became governor of Minnesota.
Is Minnesota in play? Somebody told me Minnesota is in play.
If it is, it's because we're learning who Tim Walz is, so J.D. Vance can help with that. I think
Virginia's definitely in
Here's what I predict, and I said it to President
New
Trump in our
Jersey's
interview.
in play.
But why not? It's all in play. Larry, last point on this. I said to President Trump today, I know you, and I think after you watch 90 minutes of that vice presidential debate, you're going to say, when's my next time? Come on. I know you said no or maybe not to a debate, but how in the world are you going to let the vice presidential debate be the last word of the presidential debate season
Kellyanne
and of his
Conway,
career?
the best bet. Did I promo your Trump thing? How? Was that a good promo?
You
or what?
did. You did, absolutely. Everybody check it out on Fox Nation.
Best
An hour
promo
long with
possible.
President Donald J. Trump.
When's it going to play? When's it going to play?
It's going on right now.
There are new doubts about.
Hand-waving weirdo Tim Walz is worried sick. He's going to blow it at the debate tomorrow. The VP nominee is apparently fighting off nerves and is terrified he will embarrass his potential future boss after admitting to Kamala that he's a bad debater. CNN reporting, quote, Walz constantly comes back to how worried he is about letting Harris down. He doesn't want Harris to think she made the wrong choice. But here's one thing he hasn't let Harris down on, his ability to dodge the press. The Atlantic calling out the Minnesota governor's lack of media availability, comparing him to being trapped in a campaign bubble wrap. Just want to let the audience know Greg Gutfeld said something incredibly inappropriate to me before that script. And
That was pretty mild.
It was pretty normal. Yeah.
well, then you're just a jerk. When you hear him saying he's worried he's going to let her down, how do you see that?
It's bullshit. Plain and simple. This is the lamest op I've seen in months. We're supposed to get, they expect us to get giddy and confident that this happy-go-lucky, rural, folksy dude is scared. No, he's not. He's a construct. He's purely manufactured. He's curated with all these comfortable traits. He's going to do great. He's a politician. Vance isn't a politician. Vance is deep. He writes. This guy, you know, he's a poor man's, who's the guy who used to throw the confetti around?
Don King.
I'll go with Don King.
So you're saying he's going to aw shucks his way through the debate?
Yeah. This isn't real. This is so painful to actually even address because it's so fake.
Well, we're going to be addressing it a lot in the next 48 hours because there's a big debate, Dana.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it. There's very clever efforts by the Walz campaign to lower expectations, to be like, oh, J.D. Vance is a lawyerly genius and I'm going to do terrible and I'm so afraid I'm going to disappoint her because they hope that he does better. But when they rolled him out and chose him over Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania, they said, oh, part of the reason is because he's got such great media skills. And then immediately they shoved him back in the closet. And I can't tell if it's because they're afraid he's going to outshine her, because she's apparently very sensitive to that, or because he's actually really bad, or the third alternative is they just want to play not to lose rather than try to win. But tomorrow night it will be exposed.
Rip Taylor.
Rip Taylor.
He's a poor man's Rip Taylor. Look at it. By the way, they want him to be the underdog. That's why they're doing this.
I don't even know who Rip Taylor is.
You should look him up. You look a lot like him up.
You look him up. Do you believe that your guy, Walz, is lowering expectations, or do you think he's honestly a nervous wreck, Jessica?
I think two things can be true.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to lower expectations before a debate because if it goes fine, then you look godly. And if it goes just fine, then you're still fine. But it was, if the reporting is accurate, one of his concerns or confessions during the vetting process to Harris's team was that he doesn't think he's a great debater. And J.D. Vance is not, I don't know how to say this nicely. J.D. Vance comes off awful most of the time, but he is a very smart guy, and I imagine is a pretty good debater. And if you read the transcript, as I was telling you in the break, someone far smarter than I am, hard to believe that exists, but it's true and I know them, said to me, you know, if you read the transcripts of whatever goes on at the VP debate, odds are that it's going to look like J.D. Vance won. And if Tim Walz does manage to quote unquote win, a lot of it will be emotive, it'll be how he says things, the kind of folksiness of whatever. But J.D. Vance is like an offensive encyclopedia.
But he's warmed up. I mean, he's been doing a lot of contentious interviews. He's going to be ready to play. I mean, Walz hasn't done any contentious interviews.
Yeah, he runs away. Walz runs away from the media. But you know what I think? I think the reason that Walz is worried is because he doesn't want Kamala to think that he was the wrong choice. But here's the problem. The real problem is he himself doesn't know what Kamala thinks, because he doesn't know whether it's the before she ran for president or while she ran for president, or what it was somebody said that now she supports. He doesn't know what she stands for. That's why he's scared.
Jesse,
Yes.
I heard that the Waltz campaign is actually calling in Jeffrey Toobin because he's a master debater.
Greg. All right, and Greg called me a pervert before the show.
Sabrina
right.
Carpenter is very pretty.
For 12
I like her music.
Yeah.
I don't know how she looks.
I'll bet you don't.
Up next. The next time, you're not allowed to talk anymore, Judge. The next time you call out sick, your boss might come knocking at your door. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News.